We're going to end with technology. I think that's relevant and useful because, I mean, language is a technology itself. Yeah, and whether we're talking about, the technology of the book, the technology of the printed word, whether we're talking about stuff that we measure today, mostly in bits and bytes, literacy and the promotion of literacy has always been dependent on innovations, technological innovations, yeah? Innovations in the technology of the written word or the presented word or the projected word, the illuminated word, the represented word, whatever. I think they've been fundamental to the way that we approach ways to help people learn how to read. And, I think we're going to have a much more nuanced conversation than, is technology the answer or is technology the problem? I think we're all talking not about should you use this stuff, it's about how, and we have examples of 3 organizations represented by 3 people or 4 people who are going to share with us about the how and what they do. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read their bios at a literacy conference. I'm pretty confident everyone can do that themselves, but I would now like to turn the mic over to Danny Laban from the Sesame Workshop India Trust, and he's going to talk to us about a lot of cool stuff. Over to you, Danny.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about Sesame Street because I represent Sesame Workshop, which is the nonprofit organization based in New York that has been producing Sesame Street both in the US and around the world for 50 years. This year, 2019, is the 50th anniversary of Sesame Street, which is very exciting. And in some ways, 50 years ago, the concept or the notion that television could be used to actually help educate children was in and of itself a huge innovation. And the working hypothesis really 50 years ago was based on the observation that if young kids could learn jingles from commercials, from advertising for toys, for dolls, for cereal, then might that same methodology actually be used to help teach letters, vocabulary, the alphabet song, the letter E, whatever it might be. So from that hypothesis, Sesame Street was born. And I think Sherry mentioned it in an earlier panel, but really innovation has been the recipe for sustainability over the last 50 years. If we weren't continually attempting to innovate, I don't think we would have the opportunity to celebrate our 50th anniversary and to be here today. So it's been especially, I think, challenging in some ways to adhere to the same mission statement for 50 years, which is to help children continue to grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. And what that means is that we're looking at whole child development, of which cognitive development and literacy skills are an important component, together with socio-emotional learning and health and nutrition and a variety of other skills that come together. Everything that Sesame Workshop does supports the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And really, increasingly, part of our innovation is understanding that, to your point, Mike, it's really about the how. And the television is but one platform to reach kids, and increasingly we are what we call platform agnostic. We know that the more touch points, the more we can actually be present in kids' lives, whether through high-tech or low-tech or even no-tech, then the greater the learning potential is. And I personally work on the international adaptations of Sesame Street. We have created about 30 adaptations, each of them addressing local needs, local characters, a local street, or a local setting. Sometimes it's not actually even a street. And I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into India and our project there called Gali Gali Sim Sim, which basically means Sesame Lane or Alley, because it's the work of Gali Gali Sim Sim that specifically has been honored by the Library of Congress, and the work that we've done in India to promote literacy. So just to give 1 second of overview about India, the most important thing is that, for our purposes, it is the largest population of children in the world, second largest population, but the largest population of children. And the literacy situation is not as promising as we would like it to be. Basically, 90% of first graders do not read at grade level, and the situation only compounds itself and becomes more complicated later on, especially in rural areas. For the last 15 years or so, we've been producing an Indian adaptation of Sesame Street, and it's been able to reach 25 million children a year approximately, which is about 20% of all of India's kids. So there's both tremendous reach, and studies have demonstrated that there's been impact across learning to read, about health, messaging, about school readiness, that it's an amazing platform for a variety of skills, including literacy. So with that, we decided to really look at how we can build on the incredible affinity for Gali Gali Sim Sim and for the characters, and how to experiment or pilot with new mobile technologies. And so with an all-children reading grant, we were able to create a pilot app called Play, Connect, Learn, and it's a self-paced storybook app featuring the Gali Gali Sim Sim characters. This is Chomky. She's a 6-year-old girl who goes to school, who loves to read, so she's role modeling, reading, and then there are several other Muppet characters who are her partners in reading adventure. And the pilot that we launched 2 years ago reaches 12,000 families, so it's relatively small, certainly by Indian standards, and it's helping to address literacy in the Marathi language, which is a language spoken by about 100 million people, but by Indian standards, that's considered a minority language and not necessarily the language of instruction. These are just some screenshots to give a sense. The stories become more complex in terms of vocabulary, and the characters are mixed up. There are games. I actually have the app downloaded on a tablet if anyone would like to play at the next break or at the end if you're not rushing off to the airport. But basically what we found with this particular app is that both boys and girls have had reading improvement by exposure to the app, which is really, really critical, especially in a place like India, where not only is there this huge digital divide, but there's a tremendous gender divide as well. And some of the challenges that we faced, I've just been noting to myself all day how so many of the challenges are shared by so much of the work happening with everything we've heard about. One of the challenges is that the app very much depends on parental engagement, but parents have low literacy levels and aren't actually able to help their kids with the app. We're trying to get around issues of data because that's part of the digital divide in India. It's part of the digital divide in Philadelphia, we understood today as well. And so using the app does not depend on data, but it does require syncing so that the progress on the app can be monitored. There are huge opportunities, and hopefully we can discuss them more when we have a Q&A session, but scaling up is going to be one of our hopes for the future, and applying so many of the learnings today. So again, thank you for the award, but really thank you for including us in this community.
Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Rodolfo Ardila Cuesta. He represents Transformemos Fundación para el Desarrollo Social. He will be assisted in his presentation as well. Without further ado, I give the microphone over to both of you, I guess.
Para Transformemos de Colombia es un honor estar hoy acá con personas tan maravillosas con quienes compartimos el interés de erradicar el analfabetismo en el mundo. Y que estas personas que no han tenido esa capacidad de aprender a leer y escribir puedan terminar su educación formal. Estamos seguros en Transformemos que es la herramienta básica para derrotar la pobreza. A continuación, después de que escuchen a Ana María en inglés, vamos a presentar un video en el que tratamos de resumir nuestros 12 años de trabajo. Muchas gracias.
For Transformemos Foundation from Colombia has been an honor to be here with so wonderful people like you all. And as you, we share the efforts for get a world free of illiteracy. And we are sure that this education is the tool to get over the poverty. And that's why we allow our students to access to formal education. Now we want to show you a video in which we try to summarize our 12 years of work.
No importa la edad, el estudio es bueno, porque me estoy educando. Viva transformemos, no importa la edad, el estudio es bueno, porque me estoy educando. Viva transformemos, es una fundación que todos queremos. Vamos al colegio, que el estudio es bueno.
On behalf of Transformemos Foundation for Social Development, I would like to say that we are immensely grateful to receive this recognition from the Library of Congress. We would also like to especially thank librarian Carla Hayden for this honor, and the generosity of David M. Rubenstein, who, in this way, makes visible the worldwide efforts to put an end to this global scourge called illiteracy, which condemns millions of people around the world to poverty. For Transformemos, literacy is not an objective. It is a door to inclusion and development. The reason why we work with young people and adults from vulnerable populations stricken by poverty and violence is precisely because they cannot read or write, and they have not been able to finish their secondary education. Basic tools needed in order to get a formal job or to create their own business. In this sense, and in accordance with the principles of lifelong learning proposed by UNESCO, we developed a literacy process that allows young people and vulnerable adults to complete their secondary education and improve their quality of life through a formal and contextualized curriculum that is pertinent to the reality through the use of information and communication technology that answers to their needs and potential. Transformemos is a formal education that follows the requirements established by the education ministries from the different countries where the model is carried out, allowing students to be certified, giving them the possibility of re-entering the formal education system. In order for education to be contextualized, the Transformemos model carries out qualitative ethnographic research in each of the areas or communities where the model has been and is going to be implemented, to know its culture, language, capacities, and needs, making it possible for us to create printed and interactive educational material according to each context. An example of this work is the advance in the Afro-descendant population of Palenque in Colombia, the first free village in the Americas, where the entire population is literate in Spanish and Palenquero, which is their mother tongue of African origin and which is only spoken in this community. Using interactive didactic material with which the culture, history, and language are recognized, all students manage to finish primary school. At the end of this process, the community decided to write their ancestral recipes in a cookbook in Palenquero and Spanish. The book, Cuminarri Palenque Pato Paraje, Palenquera Cuisine for the World, is now the best cookbook in the world, awarded at the 2013 Gourmand World Award in Beijing, China. Another example is the literacy process carried out in the indigenous population of Guainía, in the Colombian jungles in the border with Venezuela and Brazil, which was developed using the first multilingual software in Puinabe, Piapoco, Sicuani, and Curripaco, and Spanish, with the use of tablets, so that in multilingual classrooms each Guainia's native learned to read and write in their mother tongue and Spanish, and also to continue their studies until finishing primary school. When we refer to the use of information and communication technologies in the literacy process, it is because in the 21st century, literacy can not only be related to reading and writing, but must include the proficiency in the use of technologies, and in this sense, we have developed the Transformemos interactive system. It allows to perform the class hours in virtual learning objects, VOL, with virtual teachers, multimedia, readings, photographs, with or without the use of internet, in any language of the world, through the Transformemos platform. In Transformemos, we believe that education is the most effective tool to defeat poverty, for which it must respond to the needs and potential of each community, as well as providing the best possible quality. In the last 12 years, the Transformemos interactive system has allowed 400,000 vulnerable Colombians to transform their lives through education. We have trained 14,000 teachers in youth and adult education and designed, edited, and printed about 2 million books. Today, with our digital platform, we can offer virtual education with or without the use of the internet, at a very low cost to all the human groups that require it. Thank you very much.
Viva, 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 viva Transformemos, es una fundación que todos queremos. Viva, 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 viva Transformemos, es una fundación que todos queremos.
So now I'd like to present Jeremy Schwartz from World Possible. He is, well, they do some cool stuff as well. Jeremy.
If it wasn't obvious, Mike has that flight that we all have to get to. So first, I just want to thank the Library of Congress for including us. We built a technology tool which is used by about 240 nonprofits in 47 countries right now. But for me to be here and to learn about the how for the literacy piece and the hand-to-hand work that you all are doing is so valuable for us as we build and improve upon our tool. Our tool is, it's already going, cool. Our tool is called Rachel. It's a remote area community hotspot for education and learning. It looks like this. What it does is we built software, we're all from Cisco Systems, Western Digital, Hewlett-Packard, that helps us make copies of websites. So I can make a copy of a website and I can take this to anywhere in the world. We have chapters in Sierra Leone, Namibia, Tanzania, wherever it is, and you can access the content on it through a tablet. So what this means is that in a place like Sierra Leone, where we actually have some code books as part of the package, we can educate kids for 8 cents per learning hour using tablets and solar power. So this is all a very low-cost way to do what we do. We have copies of about 162 websites. It includes Project Gutenberg, and I think I actually have a better list here of this is, we actually just presented to the Bureau of Prisons last week where they were asking for content that's curriculum aligned. We do a lot of work in the prisons where we don't want inmates to have internet access. We also do work with homeschoolers, with people who are afraid of what their kids might be accessing online and want to keep them focused. So those are some of the 240 nonprofits we work with. I'm flying through this because I want to answer the why too, and I know we're short on time. So everything we do is free. You can go to oer2go.org and download any of the copies of websites we have. You can put them on a computer, you can put them on a tablet, you can take them with you anywhere you go in the world. They won't get updated, but most of the stuff we focus on is educational or literature in nature and doesn't need to be. We also partnered with fantastic Phonics to do a lot of literacy training. Again, something I learned, I think, from the Barbara Bush Foundation about workforce literacy. Like, that's something we've been pushing in prisons. I had no idea that was even controversial, but that's part of this program. So, you know, this is the problem with technology. We know how to do things, so we think they're worth doing, and then you find out maybe you're not doing the best thing all the time. So we fail often, wherever that came from. We just try to fail fast and fail cheaply. So these are just some cool shots of where Rachel is being used. I think the top left is schools in Guatemala, which is going to be my only humble brag in a moment. Top right is Malawi. Bottom left is the Oregon Youth Authority, and bottom right is Burma, right? So this is technology can be totally scalable across different applications as long as the content is done right. I'm going to skip this. This is my humble brag is we finally started moving into, after failing many, many times, to actually do teacher training with what we do. After about 7 years, we finally signed an agreement with the Guatemalan Ministry of Education where we can now do teacher training in college for teachers there to teach our platform. So we're in about 640 schools in Guatemala. It's paid for by the Ministry of Education, and now Bill and Melinda Gates just gave us a grant to do teacher training across the country in the colleges there for them to understand how to use this technology in their classrooms. So that's pretty exciting for us and shows a little bit about the power of scalability in this technology. So that's the end of that. I want to jump to, do I have 2 minutes? Okay, so there are some things that came up that I'm just going to try this and see. We talked about the technology. I just wanted to mention that in Oregon prisons, when we put technology as part of the learning environment, putting these and laptops in, reading went up 49% among the kids, which is great because we're giving them a broader library. But more impressively, writing went up 81% amongst the kids. So when you think about literacy, both as reading and writing, when you put a keyboard in front of someone, it really changes people's impressions of what it is to write. There was a slide in here that Nicole, my partner, put in here, and I took out because I didn't believe it, but she texted me this morning, said 75% of inmates in American prison have never used a computer, and 78% are illiterate. I took that out a few weeks ago, and she just told me the source of that quote. It was the U.S. Library of Congress. So, Another great part of this platform is that you don't have to develop for a particular app. Someone mentioned, developing for Android or developing for Apple. If you develop a website, it's going to work on the internet, and it's also going to work on this system, and you no longer need to develop apps. I think Mark talked about a consistent connection when it comes to content. Because we make exact replicas of websites, when internet does come or when someone leaves a prison facility, they're already used to using these websites. So we worked with the Goodwill Community Foundation. They have lots of literacy training and job readiness. They can immediately jump into the online copy and know what they're doing. They can continue their work when it comes to the Khan Academy or all these other great resources that we have. I talked about the ability to scale quickly. Scott's here. Library Without Borders mentioned their laundromat project. We sold 1,000 of these last year. 60 went to Library Without Borders. This is the technology they use in that project and their international projects, the Idea Box. So they're our largest partner, but really, really a great relationship. And it's something that's really great because when you deploy this, every kid with a tablet gets a copy of the book. So someone mentioned about reading being a communal activity. Well, if you only have one copy of a book in a village, only one kid gets to read it at a time. If everyone has a tablet, they can all be reading the same book at the same time, even though you just have one copy stored on this device. So that really changes the dynamics that we can do in our mobile learning labs throughout places like Sierra Leone. And the last thing I would say is that we can serve all sorts of different content on this. I am 100% confident that every piece of content that everyone in this room has created, read, watched, or researched, I could fit onto this device and deliver offline for under 8 cents per hour for access, right? This is what technology is doing, where the amount of content that we can store cheaply and easily on these devices would take the entire totality of the apps, the software, the books, everything that this group has, the entire Library of Congress could fit on this device, and it wouldn't be a problem, right? That's what technology can do for programs, and so that's just my why.